Hi, my name is Kel and I'm a therapist and educator with a special interest in eating disorders. Come on in, take a seat, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe for bite-sized content across the mental health and eating disorder spectrum. In today's video, I want to address a question that recently came into my inbox, and this question was around the topic of why I do not weigh my clients who are struggling with an eating disorder. So the person that asked this question had been over on my main therapy website, counselingandtraining.co.uk, and they'd seen in the client information available there that I do not weigh my clients with eating disorders, and they wanted to know on what basis I'd made that decision, and was that a safe and ethical decision for me to have made. And I can, in reflection, see that that might seem like quite an incongruent thing for me to have written on my website, particularly if you don't read the whole of the information available on the website, because you also often hear me talk about how eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of all mental health conditions, and that both the physical and the emotional and psychological health of the individual is important and is part of what makes eating disorders so complex, that kind of relationship between the physical health and the mental health. And so I'm seeing that it might sound a little bit confusing that I'm stating very explicitly that I don't weigh my clients with eating disorders. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit in today's video, and I'm going to talk about what I do to manage that as well in my own practice. So there are essentially two reasons why I don't weigh my clients who are struggling with an eating disorder. The first of these reasons is in relation to my professional role. So I'm a counsellor / psychotherapist, and I do not consider myself to have the appropriate medical knowledge to be offering what, at least in my eyes, is a medical type of measurement. Asking somebody to hop on a scale and determining their weight is part of a medical management, and I'm here as a mental health professional. It was in no way covered in any of my counselling or psychotherapy training to weigh clients or to think about the physical health of clients in that very direct way. And so I feel like it would be highly unethical for me to be asking a client to hop on the scale. I feel like that would be reinforcing, giving across the perception that I am a medical professional, and I absolutely do not consider myself as a counsellor to be a medical professional. I consider myself to be a mental health professional, but not a medical professional. And if I'm giving across that message as if I have some sort of capacity or authority to be monitoring, measuring, and taking information from the client's weight, that really is selling myself as something I do not see myself to be. So in that sense, I think it's very unethical. As a kind of attachment to that, I previously made a video about BMI and health. I'll link that up here somewhere, which if you haven't already watched and you are interested in this topic in today's video, really could do with going and watching that video as well, which is addressing what BMI is in terms of health. Is it a measurement of health? And I am not counting myself in a position of being able to utilize that. And the next step beyond that, and really the second reason why I do not weigh my clients with eating disorders, is really what would that piece of information give me? How would that best help me work with my client, and what would it communicate to my client? So yes, knowing the weight of my client would tell me if, based on a BMI scale, they were underweight or apparently healthy weight or overweight. But that would make little to no difference to the work that I would after that point do with the client in terms of therapy. I'm going to work with the client's emotional health, and throughout my many years as a therapist, I have very clearly seen that a person may have only very recently developed an eating disorder and may have very deep and very big complex feelings that need to be worked with, and somebody else might come along who has been unwell for many years and they might not feel like they're experiencing such a high level of distress, but may still be experiencing an eating disorder because what an eating disorder's function is as an individual's life is individual to them and relative to their experience. So if it wouldn't inform what I would therapeutically do, I don't see what point there is for me taking that number and knowing what that number is. Additionally, one of the strong messages that I've heard repeatedly from clients, from others with lived experience in advocacy, at conferences where you see individuals with personal experience talking about their eating disorder, is that individuals with eating disorders very often feel like they are being treated, particularly here in the UK by statutory services, as if they're just a number on a scale. I've made some content previously about some reasons why that might be the case, but in terms of what that means for a client, it often means that they feel unheard by the professional that they are working with. They feel like the indicator of the severity of their illness is based solely on a number on a scale. Are they underweight? Are they overweight? Are they an apparently healthy weight? And their weight, my client's weight, is not communicating anything to me about their need, about their well-being, or about how much or how little therapy and additional support that they might need. So again, it really would do nothing to inform how I would work with the client, and it may also additionally reinforce something negative to the client in the sense that I'm measuring their well-being on this specific number. And the problem of that is that it almost reinforces, it doesn't almost, it absolutely reinforces some of the eating disorder thought processes, whereby an individual struggling might think something along the lines of, if I push my body to this underweight point, then people will care for me. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that that's an explicit thought that a person has or a knowing thought that a person has, but that can be a current underneath eating disorder for some individuals. And I really would be affirming that type of belief or anything similar to that by using that measurement in my work with my clients. So having said that, I feel that these two reasons, and kind of the asides to them as well, are solid reasons for me to choose not to weigh my clients with eating disorders. I do want to be very explicit that that does not mean that I don't absolutely ensure that the physical health of my clients are being monitored. I'm aware in the current way that that's managed within services that that's highly likely to include the individual being weighed, but I, typically speaking, do not ask my client anything further in relation to that. So when clients come into my private practice, it's a stipulation of my working agreement, my contract, if you like, with my clients, that they are under the care of a medical professional. That might be the GP, that might be the eating disorder service, and that individual is regularly and appropriately reviewing the individual's physical health. So in that sense, I'm also kind of separating out the roles. I'm saying I'm the mental health professional and they're the medical professional. Get the mental health stuff from the person that's specifically trained in that, and get the physical health stuff from the person that's more specifically trained in that. And again, that reinforces where I sit with this ethically. And it does mean that the physical health of the client should be being taken care of. Unfortunately, this can be hit and miss because GPs in the UK don't have a huge amount of knowledge of eating disorders, but there are some things happening in the field that are working towards improving that. My kind of protection for that knowing that eating disorders might not be part of the education that this individual's GP has received is that I offer my clients a letter to let their GP know that they're working with me, and that does include some information that's taken from UK guidelines about the medical monitoring needs of somebody with an eating disorder. And they're not my words, they're literally taken from the guidelines that are the recommended needs of somebody that is physically struggling as a result of their eating disorder. Maybe they don't even know that they're physically struggling, so anybody with an eating disorder. And I have to trust to some degree that the medical professionals do that monitoring, and I will regularly ask my clients if that medical monitoring is being done, and I will raise appropriate concerns if it isn't being done, but it's not my place to be doing it. And I hope that by not taking on inappropriately the responsibility of weighing my client in that way and everything that I've just explained, but in still having some communication with the GP to ensure that the medical monitoring is done, or some communication with the eating disorder service to make sure that the medical monitoring is done, that I am showing the client that I really take their physical health seriously and their physical well-being is important to me, despite the fact that it is not within my immediate skill set to be looking after their physical health. And of course, the physical health monitoring should include far more than just asking the client to hop on a scale. Arguably, asking them to hop on a scale is probably the least important thing that might need to be done in terms of additional tests, such as blood tests and those types of things on a regular basis. So I hope that for the individual that asked me this question, and for anybody else that's had that thought having seen the information over on my website, that you can see that I absolutely, personally at least, feel that I am being ethical and taking care of my clients' well-being, and the information, the decision process that I have gone through in order to come to this situation in which I do not weigh my clients with eating disorders. So I'm hoping you're feeling reassured by that. I would love to hear if you agree with this, having heard me talk to you about how I got to this point, or if you have any radically different opinions, because I'm absolutely not saying that this is the right way or the only way, but I'm saying it is my way, and I believe that I'm working within my own ethical commitments. So down in the comment section below, I'd love to see some discussion about this topic. I'm going to leave it there for this video. So until next time, be kind, be curious, be yourself.